A while ago, I spent 100 days reviving my old server, and today we're back at it once again to do something that I always wanted to do, build an amusement park. Wow, oh my goodness, I didn't read the title. Such an idiot. Right, you are, idiot, but I only have 100 days to create an entire amusement park from scratch, so let's get it! I've always wanted to make an amusement park and like something halfway legit. Like I don't think I could do one of those full-scale Disneyland projects, but I want to do something, and obviously this server is like the perfect place to do it. But in order to give myself a semi-focused task, the thing that I want to do is I want to be able to do it within 100 days. So I kind of need a little bit of a plan. Now the first thing that I need to do is to get myself an elytra. But yes, I do have an elytra on, although it isn't mine. It's actually one that I'm borrowing because I was getting a tour of some places. So I need to get one for myself. We just recently allowed them onto the server, and so I kind of just want to go. And so I kind of really just need to get my own because this project is going to be a bit bigger, and I'm going to need to move around quick. So I made my way through the Nether and into the end cities in search of an elytra. The server was created upon the release of 1.17, which is back in Vietnam times, and from then up until earlier this year, elytra was not allowed. Obviously, this was to slow down the speed at which things could get done, which worked super well at allowing everyone to get on the server and create things at similar paces. But now it's been about 2 decades since the 1.17 release dropped, and we've decided to now allow the elytra. Also, the few people who still occasionally play on the server are working on some pretty large projects that require a lot of collecting items, and it's at the point now where elytra is more beneficial to the enjoyment of playing as a whole than it was before. After some exploring and some amazing ender pearl throws, I found my first end city. Unfortunately, with no shulkers and day one coming to a close, I had to move on. Eventually, I did find an end city ship, and what's even more lucky is that what actually wasn't one that had already had its elytra yoinkity schmoinked. I stuck around to kill some more shulkers for their boxes and then headed home. I then enchanted my elytra because I knew that I would be using it quite a lot, and I didn't want a situation like when I tried to hunt mobs happen all over again. This brought an end to day 2, and I began day 3 by figuring out what materials that I would need for the theme park. Now, I'm not a very good builder in the slightest, and the vast majority of my buildings are based around generic rectangles, you know, boxes. And the ones that I have tried to be a little bit more creative on end up not working out super great. This being said, in comparison to my redstone ability, my buildings actually look amazing. The point being that in order to make rides worth riding on, I needed to take some inspiration from others. Now, this is one of the aspects though that I absolutely love about Minecraft. There's no shame in what many people would consider stealing as a design. Let's be real, less than 1% of us actually create our own mob farms from scratch, taking zero inspiration. And the buildings we make are often influenced by the design schemes and block palettes of others. There's nothing wrong with this though, by the way. Minecraft is one of the few communities that can come together and collectively share ideas to make everyone's experience better. With that being said, I needed to murder endangered species to extinction in order to power my modern entertainment destination location. Hashtag endangered species don't have rice in the comments, am I right, boys? I then flew out to find a plot of nature to completely ravage for my monetary gain. I decided to go with this generally flat-ish area of land that I'd actually begun excavating for my previous 100-day challenge. Even though there wasn't much local wildlife to steal a home from, it would have to do. I plopped down my chest and began to rip away at God's beautiful landscape. From there, it began the painfully long process of doing justice to the mentally insane and making flat earth a real thing. I realized that mining through stone without a haste beacon, even with efficiency 5, does in fact not rock, but instead I found my stone being cobbled. You can unsubscribe now. Unfortunately, before I could get a beacon, I was attacked by the Huma-Huma patrol. Instead of creating my own beacon like a respectful server member, I went to the base of a player who hadn't been on for a minute and permanently borrowed his beacon. With the beacon secured, iron block sorted, and haste 2 applied, I became a rock-hard monster ripping up the terrain. Uneventfully, this became my life for a while. Flattening terrain for my theme park wasn't just a 2 or 3 day task like I thought it would be. It took a long time. In fact, by the time that I finally finished, I was a whole 10 days into this challenge. This genuinely surprised me. Last time I did a 100-day challenge, I got so much done so quickly that I figured if I just took on one decent-sized project, that I would not only be able to complete it, but add a million small details in order to make it perfect within the 100 days. But if I was going to get there, I needed to kick it up a gear, because I'm now only 10% of the way there, and not a single block has been placed to begin the actual building process. I did realize that I probably should figure out the layout for the theme park that I was going to build, you know, pre-planning. Even though I knew the theme park wasn't planned, I didn't actually know the layout, like, at all. So I decided not to worry about it, and right then I finalized getting prepared for the mayhem. I bought some rockets to fly with from a local store, repaired my tools, and as I was flying back, I got hit with a little nostalgia. a remnant from a war years ago. This has honestly become one of the coolest things about keeping the server running for all these years. It's at a point where as you're wandering around or going from place to place, you see buildings, remains, or half-finished projects that were made from a time when life was just, a little simpler. It's not much, but it's a piece of my past that I could hold on to as long as the server is running, and so it shall remain online for as long as it can. But right now I had a project and only 90 more days to make it happen, but I needed that plan. So I hopped into Photoshop to design up a rough outline for the theme park. It wasn't anything ridiculous, but I wanted to make sure that I at least took the time to actually have some sort of semi-coherent layout. I decided to split the park up into 5 main sections: the entrance, a golf course, carnival rides, water park, a dark ride, and a center carousel. I wanted to begin with the carousel since it would be the centerpiece that everyone sees when they first walk in. I needed to gather a good amount of wood in order to make this happen though. I rarely gather materials beforehand or have a plethora of materials lying around, and this definitely affected the time it took to build everything. But low is the name of the game. Also, check out this sick dive bomb edit. It feels like World War II all over again. I then tried to finish up the last little bit of terraforming near the edges, but the access powers still had one last kamikaze left in them. So I decided to do some cardio on the way back, finish some landscaping, and then I got hit with another wave of nostalgia. So I went and flew a quick lap of my ice track. I began laying out the carousel by making the actual moving part of this all. This of course starts with a circle, and having the method of movement be rails on minecarts. I began day 12 by looking for some saddles from the rook house at spawn, then went on to search for horses to stick on the carousel. Riding a minecart is cool and all, but not as cool as riding a horse. Luckily I found some cosplaying as cliff goats, and after what was definitely only 10 seconds, I got them back to the theme park. But I thought, it'd be hilarious having a pig, so I got a pig. Look at that little guy go. He dies. At this point, I was drunk on dumb ideas, as well as 12 cans of Dr. Beer, so I decided to head to the Nether to get a strider as well, because that's funny too. So I found a beautiful strider couple that had fallen in love and absolutely murdered the wife to death. Then I forced her husband to serve as an amusement park ride for kids to jump on. He's happy this way. It was time to start building the fancy pants part of the carousel now, so I will make a quick trip back to spawn to grab some nice wood, harvest some cocoa beans, and then set to work laying out the base of the carousel. The idea was to have the bottom layer of wood be brown carpet, hiding the tracks so that way the animals looked like they're actually free flying around. After I laid out the base of the carousel, I decided to take a quick pause to go ahead and mark out each area of the theme park on the ground. Then it was back to spawn to get more materials, some trading to repair my shovel, and then off to the polar ice caps to increase the rate of global warming. The point of this was to start building the golf course. I needed to wait for my cocoa beans to grow anyway because I ran out of brown dye, so I decided to get to work on another area to try and maximize my time as well as maximize my gains. Working on this challenge was honestly so much fun. Amidst the challenge itself, I got to actually just play Minecraft. My wife even joined me and played her own game of Minecraft on the screen above mine. She's not very good, but it was a vibe.
How do you fly?
Double tap A.
There it is.
I finished laying all the ice down for the course, and on day 16 I laid down the rest of the carpet on the tracks for the carousel. I then laid some more wood, which made it look nice, but would end up causing some problems with the slave labor in the carts. I then made a bunch of lined carpet to lay over the ice on the golf course, giving it a nice mini golf look. And then I showed my wife my weapon of war. Oh, it's not working. What? It should be working. Oh, there we go. Look! It launches arrows. So this is actually for the war, because we were fighting the people in the castle. So look, the arrows would land on him. Isn't that cool? Mm-hmm. Don't you find that attractive? Uh-huh. I do too. Turned me on. And I'm the one who did it. This is why she married me. Then I got a reality check from a bomber. Oh my gosh, I got jump scared. Stop laughing. I'm a man. After I regained my manhood, I added some borders to the golf course. I'd end up having to change them later for political reasons, but speaking of, check out how easily I murdered these guys. I spent the majority of day 19 hunting around for materials that I would need to create the next attraction for my park. I saw this super awesome, cool bounce, splash, drop ride that some beautiful human being had created, and I wanted it for my own. I refused to give credit, so I got to work on building it. Again, this is something that I love about the Minecraft community. When they make something awesome, they don't just share it, but will share a tutorial on how it's made so you can make it yourself, and that's amazing. Construction can be complicated though, but luckily I found some volunteers to test out the ride, and the base concept was working perfectly. I didn't decorate the ride right away because I wanted to get the basics on everything done before I spent a lot of time working on making things good. I was too afraid to get 1 or 2 rides perfect, and then those being the only rides done at the end of the challenge. The priority was to get a working park in order, and then I would fine tune the designs from there. Day 20 was spent gathering materials and then beginning construction on the next interactive attraction at the park. This awesome cool Pog Sauce attraction is a pretty cool target shooting game. It was pretty straightforward to build, and once the base was completed, I moved on to the next attraction, Bumper Cars. A super simple area of ice where you'd hop onto boats and run into each other. Super exciting. This is why we play Minecraft. I started clearing out the area for the ice, and I was low-key tempted to just make it enormous to the point where it took up the rest of the theme park. But I figured even for my standards that might be a little lazy, and you know, yeah, okay. I didn't do that. Or did I? I wanted to try and make the ice not look like ice, since I knew that the ice light effect would still work under carpets. I laid dark gray carpet over the area in order to give it a super cool asphalt look, cause boy howdy do I love eating asphalt. I also ended up taking what felt like a million side quests to get the materials throughout these 100 days. I'm leaving a lot of these little trips out of the video because it would just get super annoying if I said, and then I took a material gathering trip every single time that it happened, but trust me, I took well over 100 trips to get materials, and that's actually not an exaggeration. Also, what's up with pillager raiding parties? I swear I've never seen this many before. Like, what are the statistical odds that they spawn? Like, if you actually know, please put it in the comments, because I don't want to look it up myself. It happens a lot. Like, you'll see. At this point, day 24 was well underway, and I hadn't. At this point, day 24 was well underway, and I hadn't. Why does that sound like I'm saying it wrong? Hadn't. Is that a real word? You know what I hadn't done? I hadn't added a single roller coaster to the park. So it was high time that I did. Because if I don't, my wife's gonna leave me. I wanted to have a design that would allow me just to push a button to place a cart and then automatically brake and catch the cart once the ride was over. And I did that. As for the design itself, I wanted to make something that was not too ridiculous, but still served as a decent track. The idea was to be able to have some rises and drops, but not have something so crazy that it couldn't be replicated in real life, if, like, that makes sense. Pretty much no track drops where the track disconnects or blitz turns that would snap your neck IRL. I then gave the track a test run, and with a successful lap and more importantly, a successful cart catching system in place, the basics of the first roller coaster at the park were officially complete. Next up was to begin working on the water section of the park. Even though you could say that I wasn't too far into the 100 days, my stress levels had only been going up. 10% of the time being used to landscape was much more than I anticipated, and now about a quarter of the way through, I was only beginning the water section. I still had to create an entire dark ride complete with theming, finishing the little details on all other rides, including coming up with theming and designs, as well as actually decorating the park itself. This includes shops, paths, an entrance, and more. And to top it all off, time that it's going to take to gather all those materials isn't going to be negligible. Honestly, I was starting to lose a little hope. Well, I'll be a quarter of the way through, which is cool, but also I don't have enough time. And I'm a failure. You're gonna think I'm not cool because my 100-day Minecraft challenge isn't going that well. But I pressed on it and continued just to put my head down and to work. For the first water park attraction, I decided to create a parkour course. Although with the roller coaster, I'd wanted to keep it based in reality, this being Minecraft, I did have the flexibility to create something that would be a game-specific attraction. I'd never made a parkour course before in my life, and I'm not very good either, but it was pretty fun to do something a bit out of my comfort zone conceptually. In the end, I was actually really happy with how it turned out. It felt like it was just the right level of challenging that wasn't ridiculously hard or long, but it still felt like you accomplished something by completing it. Next up was obviously going to be a raid, but at this point raids mean nothing to me. That's how much this chaotic world has warped my mind. I'm unfazed by something simply as little as a wade. widowy. I replenished my rockets and then headed back to the end. I needed more bricks in order to continue working on the park. I wanted to build a water slide, and I knew that purple would be the perfect block to set for it. 5 minutes later, I had enough, stopped by the Enderman farm, repaired my tools, and then headed back to get to work. Since this ride was going to be gravity powered, I began by building straight up. The plan was to eventually make a soul sand elevator, so I wasn't super concerned about the aesthetics or practicality at the moment. Then I spent a bit of time designing the bottom pool, but I realized that I didn't want to have to deal with diagonals, so I straightened it up. Can you hear my kid crying in the other room? Goodness gracious. Bring it here, I'll get our vocals on the recording. Tell the people to subscribe. Yeah, you heard her. Good job. I'm gonna use any AdSense revenue, which I don't have, to buy you a sock. I don't know. What do you buy, kids? Beer? From there, the idea was to build up to where I began the slide. This made it much easier to try to start at the top and work your way down. It didn't look great. That's the whole story. Like the roller coaster that I had made, I wanted to have the beginning of this ride be automated. Even though this amusement park was going to be made in Minecraft, I still wanted it to feel somewhat real. In real life parks, everything's automated. You don't just jump in halfway through something in its operation, but you're there when it's paused. At the beginning, there's a loading dock. Going from a standstill to movement is one of the coolest features on a theme park, in my opinion, like technologically. During a mission to collect some more materials, I stumbled upon one of the rarest things that could ever happen in Minecraft. It was actually so cool. It was another raiding party. I murdered them. After my sword was covered in the blood of the innocent, I went to the witch's farm to try to get some redstone, but supplies had been sucked dry. So I headed into spawn to try one of the stores to see if I'd have any more luck. I didn't, but I found another raiding party. Killed them too. Hope they had families. Speaking of slaughtering families, my brother hopped on, so I decided to take a break from the pillage or genocide to kill my brother. He's the engineer of the family, so his blood is redstone. Just needed to make him bleed so I could power my theme park. After I'd siphoned enough out of him, I killed a llama. This gave me enough resources to finish making the top of the water slide. And yes, I've been working on the same single thing for the last 3 paragraphs of nonsense. Gathering resources is a pain in my god. I regret saying that, but it's in the video! After the top section was finished, I made some guide rails down the side. Yes, I know it's not perfect. No, I'm not going to fix it. Time is flying by, and I don't have time. I did decide to at least try to make the end of the slide somewhat less boomer, and that turned out pretty alright. I then placed the water down and gave it a run. You know what sucks? Vacuums. Do you know what else sucks? Apparently boats don't slide on carpet covered ice. How do I slide on carpet covered ice, but my boat doesn't? What are these flip flop off physics? It's just so stupid. You have a good idea, and then Notch says no. At this point in the park, it was beginning to take shape. Had it taken shape? Not yet, but the beginning signs were there. But I was also beginning to realize that maybe my layout wasn't perfect, especially around the entrance. So after a quick redesign, I went back to work. I began by heading down to the nether to collect some more materials. Specifically, I was looking to get some wither skulls. As you may know, I had always just yoinked beacons from less frequent server members. I figured I should probably get my own by now because I've been playing here for years and I've never made my own beacon. After a full day of manslaughter, day 31 began and I headed home. I grabbed a bunch of iron from our iron farm at spawn and then constructed the wither to get the wither star. I wanted to put these beacons a bit outside of where the park's borders were because next up was going to be the giant task of building a dark ride. There was this perfect cave entrance off in one corner of the park that would serve as the entrance to the ride itself. I followed the tunnels for a bit until I came to an area where I decided that the ride should begin. I didn't particularly have a theme in mind for how I wanted to design the ride, other than I wanted it to be substantially longer than any other ride or attraction that I'd had at my park. My thought was to begin the ride on one side of the park, then have it exit on the other. Aside from that, my only current plan was to just start digging and then fill it all in later. After I had my starting section cleared, I picked a direction and headed into the mountain and began to dig. After my yearning for the mines had been satiated, I went back to work on the carousel in the center. When I work on large projects like this, I tend to get bored while stuck on one single project at a time. The way that my mind works is that once I get to a certain point on a project, like let's say for example that I finished the rough layout of a ride, in my mind something triggers me to say that I'm done for now and I need to move on to the next project. Not that I'm finished entirely, but that I need to work on something else to be the most efficient. And right here is the perfect example. The carousel was the first project that I started in this park, but once I finished with the structure and getting the ride technically operational, my mind told me that it was time to go on to the next project, and so I did. The golf course, the roller coaster, the target games, bumper cars, water rides, and the dark ride track. I finished each of these rides to the same exact level that I had with the carousel. Each one had the structure done and was functional, and the very first level of quote-unquote decoration had been finished. And then I moved on to the next one, all until they had stage 1 completed, and now I circled back to the carousel. No pun intended. What's the point? It's Minecraft. It's not real life. This gives you a beautifully unique opportunity to work not just at your own pace, but with your own method. If I tried to do this with a normal job, bouncing from one project to another, I would get fired because I would look like a distracted schmuck who can't finish anything. But here in Minecraft, there's no rules like that. No one's looking over my shoulder, even you who are watching. I'm presenting this project to you, but you're not looking over my shoulder to see how progress is coming. Do you know when I finished recording this 100-day challenge? September of 2024. Yeah, that's right. I've been sitting on this footage the whole time, but it doesn't matter because in the same way that I work on this park at my own pace, I'm writing the script and I'm editing this at my own pace. The point is that you have to remember that Minecraft, it's an escape from reality. Enjoy it. Don't let someone, even yourself, put unnecessary boundaries on you. It's a game. Enjoy it. I got raided again. With the carousel officially complete, it was time to move on to the next project that needed to be made beautiful. The park course. Get it? Get it? Parkour course? Park course? You get it? Like and subscribe for 10 years of good luck. I started by ripping out the dirt floor so I could lay down a layer of white wool. Then I used red wool to mark each of the checkpoints. I wanted this course to look decently clean. You know, kind of like it was a professional court and not just an amusement park attraction. I laid some glowstone underneath to add that nice glowing effect and added some mangrove trapdoors to make each re-entry ladder look a little more sleek. I then took down the fence that I had around the pool in order to make a border that would fit the look of the area, of which I imported quartz pillars from the land of Zimbabwe. I then took a bit of a detour since I had the help of Bugden, but just like the last 100-day challenge, it began with me getting put in a box. Then, as I was giving him a quick tour, despite having netherite armor, he still managed to die. So one quick detour later and we're back on track. My goal is to spend the last 25 days finalizing that as well as decorations, because currently I'm on day 38, which is fine for progress. It seems good, but there's a whole lot of complicated stuff left, which is why I could use the help. So what I would like to get done today is to try to finish off the why am I blinking? Oh, the arcade section. So that includes the bouncy ride, shooting game, the roller coaster, and bumper cars. I want the shooting game to be made of like purple blocks instead of just the stone ones. Same with like the drop tower because that's kind of a lot of the similar theme. The roller coaster will keep the same. Kind of the first thing that needs to get done is, honestly, this is where the chorus route comes in, is I need to make a whole lot of purple blocks. With that plan in mind, we headed to the end to rip down another of the finite amount of Enderman structures for the pleasure of the overworld. We then got to work ripping down some of the base structures of some of the attractions and replacing the blocks with purple. I then replaced some of the stone from the area with grass in order to make it look much better while Bugden worked on a return system for mini golf. I played around with it a bit, trying to figure out the best way to make the line for the ride, trying out a few different blocks, which were all sorts of frustrating to find the perfect ray break, excuse me. Eventually, I went with stone brick walls, which I think ended up looking pretty snazzy. From there, I went on to work on the short coaster in the arcade section, trying to take it from a boring structure surrounded by stone to a beautiful area of beautifulness. I added the cool water area because I realized that you can actually run minecarts in the water, which is heckin' dope. Over at the golf course, we were trying to find a way to make it so that when you finish the final hole, the armor stand would automatically transport itself back to the beginning. The tough part about this is that armor stands don't break on their own. We ran a bunch of experiments and spent a good amount of time on the return system, but in the end, we weren't able to get it going. More specifically, it was looking like the time that it would require us to spend on getting the system working perfectly would set us so far behind on the park that it just wouldn't be worth it, at least for now. So back to work I went on terraforming the stone and touching up the coaster, as well as adding new barriers to the golf course to keep the armor stands in, making everything as beautiful as possible. Bugden wasn't helping much. I decided to add a beacon to the center of the carousel, which I think is a pretty big brain move. I made concrete. Yum. I mined for diamonds on day 45 because I ran out of diamonds to be able to pay for more rockets, because yes, all these rockets that I'd been using, I'd been paying for. I then took a bit of a trip to find sunflowers because I needed the yellow dye, and sunflowers allow you to use the bone meal hack in order to get a bunch of dye all at once. I also may have accidentally used X-ray to find an ancient city. I made concrete. The next area to work on was the bumper cars. I was going for a semi-elegant theming, and if I succeeded or not is up to you, but I decided to have a base of black with some accents along the way. I got bombed.
One I'm wearing right now.
Delusional, welcome to Chuckle Sandwich.
Drop carts were next on the list, and similarly to the archery station next to it, I went with purple blocks in order to keep the theming similar. It was at this point that we officially reached the halfway mark, but oh boy, despite looking like I was making progress, the reality was that I was so far behind schedule from where I wanted to be that I was going to start having to make some compromises. I did some quick work on the water slide and began to work on an elevator to make it actually accessible. I left a window on the backside so that way you could look out over the world as you rode up, which I thought was kind of cool because it is, and then I took some time to do some stone replacement therapy. And then I got to work on the walls and decoration for the cart drop. I added some nooks to the path, placed a tree in them, finished up by carving out the path, and the park was really starting to take shape at this point, but I'd failed to actually quantify how long and annoying it would be to have to replace the stone at every turn. There was so much stone. Genuinely, I was re-terraforming the first 10% of this challenge all over again. On day 53, I gathered up some andesite. Andesite? Is it diorite? Hey, ChatGPT, is that andesite or diorite? Huh? That didn't help. Google images, diorite. Nice. This was to finish up the walls on the golf course because I hadn't finished yet, even though I think I started placing them something like 25 days ago. Then more stone replacement therapy, which took all of day 54's time. Eventually, I got enough done that I could move on to the next task, which was sectioning off some of the park like an actual park. I didn't want people walking through attractions themselves just to get to a different ride, or taking back routes and shortcuts to get to rides. So I put down some iron bars to act like a fence, hopefully just discouraging some people from trampling around. Yes, I know that you could just hop over them, but still, it's the thought that counts. From there, I got to work on the entrance of the coaster. I was getting a little frustrated because I couldn't quite visualize what I wanted, which happens quite often. And when this happens, I honestly just start putting blocks on the ground. If you just start building, will it end up looking perfect? Maybe, but nothing happens if you do nothing. I have no eye at all for any sort of design, especially when it's working from scratch, so it's easiest for me just to do something with no real plan than to do nothing and get stuck and frustrated. The theme that I ended up going with was water. I found an old ocean monument that I'd conquered with a friend years ago and mined out a bunch of blocks to use for the coaster back in the park. On day 57, I headed back to get some work. Sooner rather than later, I had myself an entrance that actually wasn't half bad. It was full bed, just kidding. I'm kinda happy with how this one turned out, kinda not. Day 60, raid time. After the acupuncture, I cleaned up the park course some more by replacing some of the warped planks with quartz and adding a perimeter around the edge beyond just the pool walls. I finished with an exit which is fitting, and the park course was done. Next, I got some clay, repaired my tools, got a fortune shovel, and turned the clay into balls. Then I started smelting. And then I got some oh crap. I got one of those two blocks. I got some copper, made some brick slabs, and it was finally time to build an actual path. I love stone replacement therapy. I wanted to go with a brick path for two main reasons. The first is that it wasn't going to be used for any other decorations in the park, so it'd be its own thing. And secondly is that it has the notion of being nostalgic. You don't see brick roads anywhere that's new. Brick paths are something from the good old days, and I like that. Minecraft has this beautiful feeling of nostalgia, and so do amusement parks. So if I could capture even the notion of that feeling, I will. It's day 69. You know what we do today. Bomber alert! Day 70 was back to building paths, and yes, it has genuinely taken this long to build the paths, and I genuinely have been pretty efficient in my stonemasonry. Even if you take out the trips to gather materials, which usually takes up the most time, I would have saved at most maybe one day on path laying. I love stone replacement therapy. For the water area, I decided that instead of paths, I would create an open area with sand-colored blocks. One of the big reasons for this isn't actually the separate theming, but because I feel like I need to add another ride or attraction. There's just too much of an open space. Now, the thing is, I know I won't be able to do it in the 100 days because I still haven't finished the paths, the scenery, the entranceway, the shops, your mom, but I do want to continue this project even after the 100 days. I decided to add some texture to the main path by adding, one of those blocks around the outside. So yeah, I need help because I'm currently on day 74 right now. And I am not near being done. With the clock ticking down, I marked out the area where shops would be, and as I entered my final 25% of time, I knew that I'd have to make some sacrifices. When I first thought of making this video, the theme that came to mind as my pièce de résistance was going to be the Dart Ride Coaster. It was going to be the longest and most immersive of all the rides and attractions. The plan was to have exceptionally detailed theming throughout the entire ride, from the entranceway all the way through the ride. This would have included parts of the ride that would move and change as the rider rode by. The theming in each section would tell a story, but that alone was going to take the whole 100 days, and I'm not willing to compromise on the quality of that ride. For as much as I wanted that to be the driving force behind the park, it just would have to wait. And that's a valuable lesson that I learned. Even with a clear plan, things don't work out sometimes. But how do you compromise in a way that's going to work? It may not be getting the ride that I first set out to make, but my option was either to pursue that and simply run out of time with only a few complete rides, maybe in an open field, or I could admit temporary defeat on the dark ride and use that remaining time to finish the park to a level that I'd be happy opening it to the public. As the Minecraft soundtrack played in the background, that's what I did. I just gotta say, you are significantly better at building a shop than I am.
I've got a reference image, so I am... Basically, the front is what I saw on the reference image, and the rest I'm just making up.
That is still beyond anything I can do. Well, let's look over and see square building on the side over here. Yeah,
This is more my building style. Like, I'm a bit out of my comfort zone. You see me like freeze every now and then as I go back and look at the image again. Rookland, yeah.
Yeah. How to make this less look like it's just stupid.
Your face is stupid.
With 20 days left to go, I got to work on the golf course, adding some obstacles and some trees in the infield to give it some more life, and it was really starting to take shape, but it needed a border. It also needed an entrance, and with that being done, I went on to add the rest of the border around the entire park. Time was going by quickly, but at this point, progress was happening just as fast. Now it was time to blitz create some shops of my own. I'm not great at designing buildings, which I mentioned before, hence why I created the theme park instead of a grand castle, so you're gonna have to deal with what I make. Is it great? No. Did I get something built that's decent enough to show for the 100 days? Yeah, it kind of is. As we now rounded out the end of the 100 days, I finished up by adding a berm around the side of the park to make it seem more enclosed. I finished up the final bit of the path at the end of the mini golf course, added some decorations to make the entrance to the dark ride look like it was under construction, added details to some of the buildings, made one final shop, extended the entrance tunnel, added some lights, cleaned up the chest, took down my viewing tower, and that was it. 100 days and over 33 hours later, I was done. The easiest thing to do is to start a project, and the hardest thing to do is to finish it. But why are you working on it? Why even start in the first place? Because what you can make is truly beautiful. And sometimes all you need is a finish line that you'll reach whether you're ready or not. Honestly, the 100-day challenge isn't a video that I make because I think my viewers are going to love it. Because even if you do, it takes so long for me to make them that it's completely not worth it from the perspective of trying to grow the channel. But once in a while, it's something that I have to do. For me, I need to slow down, to stop, to work on a passion project, to force myself to be patient, to have the discipline to stick to one single project until it's finished. It's been tempting to record another video and upload that in the meantime. Like, trust me, I've had some good ideas and you're gonna see them, but I haven't done it. This is my project and I wanted to complete it. And look what happened. I started with nothing. I created the theme park. No one's gonna take this video and share how wonderful the park is. Heck, if it gets over 300 views, that's insane. But every time I log on, I know that I placed the blocks myself. I built this in survival. I came up with the ideas, sourced the materials, found others who'd created rides and shared them online to incorporate that into my own park, and I put it together myself. The only help that I got was from people who were equally involved in the server, people who shared the same passion and love for the server and for the game that I do. There are spans of many months where no one logs onto the server, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm never gonna shut down this server, no matter how dead it may seem. I might even pay for 6 months to a year between people logging on, but even if it's just once a year for a week, the server's here. You could log on and see years of progress, memories of when we first started to now. So get your own, grab some friends, and play Minecraft, because this game, it's beautiful.